Hey guys, this is Nathan and welcome to the Gaming 4. Today in this Unturned Map Editor tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to detail a mechanic shop. Now, as far as I know, there are only two mechanic shops. The original is right here, mechanic number 1, and we have the second one, which I think was introduced in Russia, mechanic number 2. So as you guys can see, there's a little bit of a color difference. This one's got more of a red theme, the other one's got more of a green theme. So whatever works, I'll be showing you guys how to detail both today. So one of the main parts of a mechanic shop is going to be the car lift. This is a classic object that is used in pretty much every single mechanic. So at least for mechanic number 1, probably the best idea to start at least is to just place two of these car lifts down corresponding to the two driveways. And as you know, really you can put them back as far as you want. I would leave a little bit of room in front and back, and it really just depends on how you want to arrange the space. So we're just going to copy paste that with Control C and Control V, and then we'll get two of those in there. Alright, so that's a pretty good start. That fills most of the room actually, because there's not much else in here. It's kind of small, but we can put in a lot of little details that we'll start going over here. So another main part of the mechanic shop is that you need to have some sort of checkout area, some sort of control center, some area where maybe the boss sits and supervises things, and that's why we have these tables over here. Now I just chose table wood number 1 and number 2 because those two would fit the best. We also have table metal number 1 depending on what kind of style you want to have inside. So for now I'm just going to take table wood number 1. Along with that you're probably going to want to have a chair. So I've got chair wood number 1, chair wood number 2, or chair metal. So I'm going to choose chair wood number 1 and table wood number 1, and I'm going to copy paste and place those in here. Now generally for this you can put it almost anywhere really. Making the table around here would be perfect. Also you could have the table somewhere up here. It really depends on how you want to organize this space once again. So I'm just going to leave the table back here for now. I want to leave a decent amount of room for people to move through over here so I can't cramp it up right up here, and I also want to leave some room for people coming in this doorway. So probably somewhere around here is going to be fine, especially since I need to have the chair here as well to make it make sense. Also, I forgot some objects here. We can add a newspaper. That would definitely be a good one for on this table. That's definitely optional, but if you want to add that little extra detail, definitely consider newspaper. Also, computer would be good. I think computer number 3 is a laptop. That would fit really well right here. You could also use one of the nicer ones with computer number 4 for one of the monitors, or computer 1 or computer 5 for the actual desktop part of it. So that would definitely work right here. And this just sets up a nice little organized area. And maybe actually I've got a few other objects you can put on here. So we've got telephone, or phone, not telephone. That would definitely be a good one to have somewhere in your shop. You don't necessarily have to put it on this table, but this would be a good spot for it. There will also be counters and shelves that we'll put down here in just a sec. Also, another good one to have would be a lamp if you want it. You could put a floor lamp. Lamp number 2 is a floor lamp. You could put that down as well. We've got some books. Really, you can choose any color book. I just brought out 2 for examples. And a register. That would be a good spot to put a register because people that use your mechanic shop will have to pay, and eventually you'll have to use a register. So that would be a good place for those as well. Now, sort of finishing off that sort of office little area in the mechanic shop, we have some filing cabinets, and these always look pretty good no matter what building, as long as it's in the right context. So really, files number 1 or files number 2 would work here. I'm just going to choose files number 1 because the cabinets are a little smaller, and I'm pretty much just going to arrange those on this back wall. And this pretty much just adds a little bit more detail, and it doesn't actually take up too much room, so we actually have a lot of room to work with still. And you can pretty much just copy paste these across the wall and get as many or as little as you want. And of course you can arrange them anywhere on this wall as well. If you want to have them over on this side only, that's fine. If you want to have them right in the middle or near this edge, really either way works. Alright, so as I said before, we got a lot of extra room still in this area, and we do need to add a little bit more detail. Otherwise it's going to be pretty bare and it's going to look kind of lame. So we have some other objects here. For example, we have some shelves. So shelf number one would definitely be good in this area. In terms of mechanic one, there's not that much space, so we may not be able to fit it very many places. So for example, if we try to use it back here, this could work. If we move these car lifts forward a little bit more, we could get actually a decent amount of room. And if you turn them sideways like this, there pretty much is enough room. So this would definitely be a good place for shelf number one. And I actually will leave one there. That's pretty good. There's also another spot you could put a shelf number one. That's this area right here. So there generally will be a good amount of extra space in this area right here. You could either put another table, maybe like a round circular table with maybe some books or newspapers or radio on it, or you could put some shelves, like something like this. So, I'll probably leave a shelf right here as well. And these shelves are really good just for like object spawns. You can put a ton of object spawns into here, like cloth, metal, metal scrap, that sort of thing, or metal plates, even generators, work lights. All of that would definitely fit on these shelves. Now let's try to incorporate another shelf in here, shelf number 3. This is one of my favorites just because it's so easy to put against walls. This one will pretty much just fit against any wall that there's room, and I'm just going to line the back with maybe a couple of these, one or two, and that'll work pretty well. And of course, if you guys want to make these arrangements, make them a little more precise, that is completely up to you. I'm just sort of laying them out there as options for you guys to use. Alright, so this is pretty good. We've got a lot of stuff happening in this area, and this is almost done. We only need a few other things to finish off mechanic number one. One of the classic things you actually do find in a mechanic shop is stacks of tires. Now there's multiple sizes of tires here. We've got wheel number 1, 3, 4, and 7. The other wheels are a little off. One of them is really large, one of them goes to a train, and these are the main wheels for cars. So I'm going to use wheel number 1 just because this is the classic one. It's the most average wheel stack we can make, and pretty much the best way to do this is use snap, rotate. Use the rotate tool, hold down control, make sure your snap rotation setting is maybe 15 or 30, whatever works. You're essentially going to want to get it to 90 degrees and lift it up so it's not glitching in the floor too much. Then you're going to copy paste using Control C, Control V, and essentially just make a bunch of these tires on top of each other. Now I would suggest that you off center them every time you copy paste. That just makes it look more natural, it makes it look a little better, and it keeps it from being too uniform. And really, even like 3 tires on top of each other looks pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty good tire stack. Now there's a couple places you can put these. Pretty much anywhere that there's extra space. For example, here would work. In the middle would work. You could actually fit 2 tire stacks there, or over here would work. You could also fit them against this back wall as well. So I'm going to actually copy this and put about 2 in here. Now I'm going to rotate them just to make them a little different. I would definitely suggest not copying and pasting too much in your custom builds because it just shows that you made it lazily and it just sort of decreases from the quality. And I'm going to make this one tire higher just to like really differentiate it from the other stack. Alright, so that's good. We've got 2 tire stacks. They look really nice. And we do actually have a bit of extra space still. So there's a couple other things we can do. Barrels are definitely an option for inside a mechanic shop. We've got barrel 1, 2, and 3 here, all different colors. If you just want to take a single barrel and place it, let's say, in the corner, it's not going to look out of place. It'll look completely fine. Who knows what could be inside it? It could be oil that they use for car parts, or something like that. So definitely consider putting barrels around your mechanic shop. So I'm going to leave that there. And there's 1 or 2 other things that we probably should have in a mechanic shop. One of them being a radio. Now, obviously mechanics need to listen to something to keep them interested while they're working on cars. So having a radio around your mechanic shop is a good idea. So we've got radio number 1 and the radio number 2. They're different styles. Radio number 1 is more modern. Radio number 2 is quite old-fashioned. So I'm just going to stick with radio number 1 for now. And the best thing to do with this is either place it on the ground in a free area, like this would definitely work, or place it on one of the shelves you've placed. So for example, you could place it in one of the shelves over here, or on one of these shelves over here. Alright, the one last thing we really should probably add to our mechanic shop is some lights. Lights are really good in a mechanic shop just because they need the area to be well lit. Now you can use these light number 1 and light number 2. Light number 2 is pretty cool because it actually flickers, and it does provide some light that sort of flickers as well. But what's actually kind of really cool is light number 3. It's sort of more of a workshop light, and I think this one would fit the best inside a mechanic shop. So I'm just going to bring that light over here and start placing it up on the ceiling. Now obviously you don't want it to collide with this car lift, so you're either going to want it to go like right in the middle and have it hang down a little bit just out of the way, or have it behind. Now I'm going to put mine behind, and I'm going to copy paste and maybe make like 2 or 3. I'm going to have 1 per car lift, and I'm probably going to have 1 main one over this area. And that just gives it a little bit more of a 3D feel. Not only is the space well filled, but you also have its own lighting source. So that just adds a lot more quality to your mechanic shop. Alright, so this is pretty much it for mechanic number 1. There's obviously a lot of other things you can do with this. You can arrange it completely differently. You could even leave one of these car lifts out and just have a car spawn in here. Whatever works for you, hopefully this gives you a good idea how to do that. So let's move on to mechanic number 2. So the nice thing about me showing you how to do mechanic number 2 is that it's going to be very, very similar to mechanic number 1. So we will start off once again by using these car lifts, and this one, the main difference is it has 3 car areas instead of 2. So we have a lot more room in here, and we can do a lot more stuff with this. But we're essentially going to do it about the same. We'll just have it a little better organized. So once again, I'm going to want to leave a bit of room in front and a little room behind from these car lifts, and I'm probably going to use at least 2, if not 3. I'll maybe leave the 3rd spot open just in case we want to do something different with it. So we're just going to start out with 2 then, and let us move straight into maybe some shelves or some tables. Now let's get some shelf number 1 in here. This is always a good classic, and I'm probably going to put a couple right along here. This is a perfect area. It's a little strip of wall that sort of blocks off from the outside, and we can actually put a couple shelves here. This is going to be perfect. It gives a good access for lots of spawn locations. You can put spawn locations anywhere on these shelves, and just sort of fills up the space pretty well. Alright, so we got a lot of extra room back here as well. There's a couple other things we can do. We could use shelf number 2. Now the issue with shelf number 2 is it's double-sided, and generally we don't have enough room to actually be able to use both sides of the shelf. As you see, if we try to put it somewhere in the middle right here, there's not really enough room on either side to make it really comfortable. What we can try to do though is try to fit it half and half in the wall. Now the issue is it will stick through the back. So there's a couple fixes to that, or really one fix to that. Either we leave it sticking through the back, or we use the scale tool like I just did to sort of hide that from behind. Now the scale tool will be pretty good. The one bad thing about it is it's going to make these front shelves a little smaller. But really we can deal with that. It still gives a lot of shelf space, and it looks pretty good. So the nice thing also about these is that you can sort of link them together pretty well. And so pretty much we can just make this whole back wall full of these shelves. So that'll look pretty good, and as I said before, that'll give us a lot of spawn locations. Now if you guys don't want to have these cracks, feel free to just snug those up, or find a snap transform that actually works well for that. You guys can have these overlap quite a bit. You really can't tell when they do overlap. For example, this one's overlapping with that one a little bit. You really can't tell, and that's something that's really nice about these. Alright, so that gives us a nice back shelf. Tons of room back here. We can put tons of item spawns and everything like that as well. Alright, so let's put some tire stacks. This time I'm going to use a little bit of a larger tire. I'm going to use wheel number 7. This is more of a tractor tire, so definitely a bit more heavy duty. And because we have a lot of extra room back here, I'm going to put a tire stack back here as well. So I'm going to pretty much assemble it the same way, rotate it 90 degrees, copy paste them on top of each other, and off center them just a little bit. And the thing about these is they're really large, so you really cannot put much more than 3 to 4 tires on top of each other, or otherwise it gets like super ultra tall. So I'm going to put this one maybe against this back wall, and I'm going to rotate the whole stack around a little bit. Alright, so there we got a tire stack that just makes it a little more interesting, and I guess I will scoot it back a little bit more, just so that there's enough room to get through this area. Alright, so we do have a lot of extra room still, and we should probably start filling it. So I'm going to take some barrels, and I'm going to put some barrels in here. Now I'm going to put like multiple barrels this time because we do have a lot of extra room. I'm going to put like 2 red barrels here, and that'll fill up this little area pretty well. And for over here, I might put maybe like 1 green barrel or 1 blue barrel by itself in the corner. Now you do want to sort of split up the barrels if you do place multiples of them, just to keep it sort of unique and original throughout the whole thing. If you do put barrels everywhere, it'll be kind of repetitive and kind of lame, so you don't really want to do that as much. But having multiple barrels is fine as long as you split them up. Now we still have a lot of extra room in here. We also have this sort of interesting entryway with a pretty long hallway, and we have this back room here. So we got a lot to sort of fill up still. So for this entryway, there's a couple things we can do. We've got a coat hanger. Because mechanic number 2 is quite a lot larger, we can definitely put a coat hanger here. That sort of fills up this area a little nicer, and it makes it a little bit of a nicer mechanic shop just because it's a little more homey, there's a lot more room, and there's enough room to come in and sit down. Another thing we could do here is potentially put shelves up against these windows. Now I kind of don't like doing that because it does block off the windows and it looks pretty bad from the outside. You see like the back of a shelf and you can't really get in the windows, so I would probably suggest against that. You could do that if you really need to. Another thing you could do to fill up this space is put some chairs. Now, it seems kind of weird having chairs inside your mechanic shop, but if you think about it, let's say you got a customer that's waiting in line to talk to maybe a mechanic inside the office here. They will want some place to sit. So this is definitely not a bad idea, just have a few waiting chairs here. You could put a few more as well, but I'm just going to leave 2 there for now. Also, as I said before, we can have a radio in here. This time I'll use the old-fashioned one. It really depends on your preference. It doesn't really matter which. And this time, instead of putting it on the floor, I'm going to put it on top of this shelf. Alright, so there's our radio. And let's start working on this back office area. So as I said, it is probably going to be used as an office area. You could use this as a storage area, but there's enough storage out here that you don't really need to. So if you want to make this an office, definitely go for it. So there's a back door there as well, so it's going to make it a little interesting on how we want to sort of arrange it. But the first thing you probably should do for an office is grab a table. And I'm going to grab a matching chair as well. So we kind of want to put the table in a pretty convenient spot, so let us put the table right about here. This leaves a decent area for sitting room over here, and we might put one of the couches there as well. So along with the table, we're going to put a chair, and we probably want something on the table. So as I said before, probably can use a computer, and this time I'm actually going to set up a desktop. We'll make it a little more heavy duty, so we'll just use computer 1 and computer 4. Oh, not computer 1, computer 2 and computer 4. There we go. So now we got a desktop and a monitor set up there. That works well, and we can probably grab a phone as well. Actually, phones are not necessary, but we'll grab one anyway. Okay, so let's grab that phone, put it down, just so that the manager can pick up phone calls and talk to customers. Alright, so we still have a lot of extra room in here, and as I said before, we can put a couch down. So you could either choose couch number 1 or couch number 2. Either would work. It just depends on how you want to fill the space. So let's say if we want to use couch number 1, we're not going to fill up the space as much, but you could potentially fit 2 couches down instead of just 1. So this would definitely work. We could put 2 down, definitely have them both rotated slightly differently, and that would definitely work. This gives a nice meeting area for the manager or whoever is working there to sort of sit down and talk with customers. Or you could just put a single large couch there as well. Now I'm also going to put lamp number 2 in the corner, just because it's a little corner, and who knows, they might want a lamp there. It definitely doesn't seem out of place. Alright, so we still have a lot of room back here, and there's a couple other things we can place down. We should place some files if we are going to place them. This is a good way to fill up the extra space. Let's see, I'll place them along this wall here, and we'll just rotate them, snug them up, and copy paste like usual. And we can put a lot here, and that pretty much fills up this entire wall. That's pretty nice. Got it all filled. This leaves one last little awkward area, and as I said before, my favorite shelf, shelf number 3, will do the job just fine. So we can put shelf number 3 here. We could actually have it rotated both ways, either facing that way or facing this way, and we could actually do potentially both. So let me make sure this is snugged up against the wall. I'll copy paste it, rotate it 90 degrees, and snug it up against this wall as well. And that will pretty much finish this office area. Now we can snug these both up and sort of get them into a nice little corner there, or we could even make them almost touching and completely get rid of that corner. As you guys can see, you can barely see it. We could even get them a little snugger just like that as well. And that definitely works, and that definitely fills the space. And that's pretty much the whole goal, is to fill up the space in the best looking way as possible. Now, as I did with the other mechanic shop, we can also put lights in there. This time I'll put down maybe light number 2. We'll get that cool flickering sort of action going. And the nice thing about these, the mechanic shop number 2, is that the ceiling is a little higher, so we can put these in the exact middle and not worry about it running into the car lift. So I'm just going to put probably 3 or 4 of these down because the building is a little larger as well. And we'll at least have 3, one corresponding to each drive-in, and I guess we'll put a 4th just for this hallway here as well. Now, if you guys want to leave the inside of this building as it is, this would completely work. It's well filled, there's enough item spawn areas, and you know, it sort of makes sense for what should be inside a mechanic shop. But there's a few extra things you can do. Now, for example, we have these steering wheels and these smaller tires here. If you want to put some of these onto your smaller shelf areas, you can definitely do that. So I'm just going to copy paste, and we'll place a few of these around. Now you can either scatter these along the workshop floor, that would be okay, but that would definitely not make it a sort of good mechanic shop, or you can sort of stack these on top of your shelf. This would probably be a little better just because there could be spare parts for extra cars that may come in. So that just gives it a little more extra detail. I would definitely spread them out, just so that you don't clump them all together, and it spreads out this sort of detail. Also, you can put these on any type of shelf, so don't necessarily put it on the one type of shelf. Make sure you spread them out and put them all over the place. You could also stack them just sort of in the corner here and there as well. That would definitely work. So one other thing you can do, sort of an out there idea, not really, I've seen it anywhere, but you could take something like a snowmobile or another small vehicle. Snowmobile I think will work the best, but you can take, like, let's say a black snowmobile, and you can actually mount it to the wall, sort of mount it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a snowmobile, put it up against the wall, and find a nice height. The nice thing about Mechanic 2 is that there's a lot of ceiling space, so we got a lot of wall space as well. This really wouldn't work in Mechanic 1, there's not enough space in there. You're going to want to make sure that it doesn't glitch into the wall too much, and I'm going to have to rotate it a little better. And then make sure you snug it against the wall pretty well. Then you're going to want to have a stand that makes it look like it's hanging up purposefully. So actually what I found for that is we've got steer number 3 and steer number 4. Both of these could potentially work for wall hangings. So pretty much what we're going to want to do is take both of these, rotate them by 90 degrees so that they're perpendicular to the wall, and we can use the stretch and scale tool to actually scale these to the size we want. Now we can scale them out to make them long enough so it makes it actually fit and hold the bike. You're going to want to make sure it doesn't poke through the wall back there. You could also make it wider as well this way so that it actually sort of holds the entire bike as well. And this could be pretty good as an extra bit of detail to your mechanic shop. This is not uncommon to have some sort of small vehicles or bikes to be on the wall. Let's see, if there is a bike object, which I don't think there is right now, you could do this as well, and that would definitely not look out of place. You could also potentially hang tires against the wall, or any other sort of small, cool mechanic object as well. So that's an extra option, and that's pretty much it for the inside of these mechanic shops. So there's actually a little bit you should think about when you do the outside of these mechanic shops. One thing that would definitely be a good idea to have around a mechanic shop at least is a fuel tank. Now, it depends on the placement of maybe your town or wherever the mechanic shop is, but you may want to have the fuel tank, around the back or on the side. It really depends on the location, but definitely maybe think about having a fuel tank around. Also, I would definitely suggest having some parking near your mechanic shop, whether it's just outside or like really close. And I would use block parking number 1, line parking number 1, and line parking number 2, depending on how you want to set it up. So anyway guys, that's pretty much it for the mechanic shop. Hopefully this gives you a good idea of how to decorate these inside of your own map. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see some more. I will see you all later.